Hi everyone, it's Anja here and I'm back with another video for Ophelia Talks, and today we are making the capelet that Brianna wears in the Outlander television series. I looked at it and I thought, oh, what a wonderful thing it is. It keeps your neck nice and warm, and it is made with chunky yarn, which I didn't have, but I used several strands of DK yarn held together. Now, for this project, I realized I needed a nice chunky yarn, but I couldn't find one. I ended up using what I had in my house, which is some batik swirl cake. So I used 2 cakes. These are double knitting. I used my trusty yarn winder here to decompose the cakes. As you can see here, I am taking the colors apart. So first of all, I just went on to the yarn winder, started winding until one color was finished, cut it off, then did another one and another one, created lots of little cakes like that. And then I decided to bring the colors of cakes together. So some are all blue, some are all green, and then I started mixing. But what I didn't want to do is leave it to chance and have like 4 different colors together. I really did want to try and, sort of have some sort of control over the colors. So that's what you can see here. Then of course Brianna has 2 buttons there. Now again, trying to find those in my stash, I couldn't because I didn't have that size button. So I did find this in my sewing basket, and it's one of the clasps that I used when I was doing reenactment. This would have been around in that time. So I am going to use this. The video that I'm doing today will not allow for the buttons, but I have written in those buttonholes in the written pattern, which is available online from my web shop. Of course, I realize that Brianna's capelet is knitted. So we are still crocheting it. So this is a yarn that I used, Batik Swirl Double Knitting Starcraft. It's 80% premium acrylic, 20% wool. There's about 550 meters and this is 200 grams. And the shade is Forest. And like I said, I used the 2 cakes to make up the 4-stranded cake that I have here. And I will be using an 8mm hook. So to get started, we are going to make a slip knot, and make sure that whatever you do, you consider these 4 strands as being your 1 strand. So make sure that each time you do a stitch, you move that hook, there's always 4 strands together on your hook. And we are going to chain 31. So let's chain 31. Making sure you make your movements quite big, because obviously this is going to be much more chunky than if you were just to use your 1 strand. I will see you when you have 31 chains. I now have 31 chains, and yes, again, you are going to make sure that you do see 4 colors, you do see 4 different lines here, but of course this here, this 1V, that is your 1 stitch. Okay, so make sure that you realize, yes, there are 4 strands, it is going to look different, and you just have to sort of adapt to that basically. So let's do the next row. From the 2nd chain, so 1, 2, you place in the back bump, so you turn the work towards you. In this back bump here, you're going to place a single crochet. So this is our first row. So this chain here, the 31st chain is our turning chain. This is our first stitch. In the back bump of the first stitch, we are going to do a single crochet. Now, as you can see, it's not that easy to get into it. So I have got this back bump located. I'm turning my hook and I'm going to try and pick up, but as you can see, look, I've picked up only 2 strands, so there's 2 more that I need to pick up. And there we go, there's the other 2. It will get easier, but it's just that very first stitch, very first back bump. And so you do a single crochet. There we go, that's your first stitch done. You might want to put a stitch marker in here, just so that you know that this is your first stitch that you also have to do when you come back, of course, as your last stitch. So we keep on looking at the back bump here. So here is one, there is one, there, 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 and we are going to place a single crochet in every back bump all along our line. So you should be doing 30 single crochets. And like I said, it's not that easy to pick them up. It'll get easier in the next rows, but it's just this row here. And the reason why we pick up the back bump is so that you have a nice edge left over for your little shawl to hang sort of at the front of you, and so that it's nicely finished. So I am going to try and see that went easier, but again, yeah, making sure you always pick up those 4 strands that you need to hold together. Of course, if you do find a chunky that you can use with an 8, then I suggest you get that and go ahead, and then you don't have to worry about your 4 strands. But yes, I made do with what I had, and I have to say I love the effect. Okay, I'm going to get on with doing my 30 single crochets. Okay, so I've just done my last single crochet in the back bump. So I have 30 V's on top of my work here. So now we are going to do row 3. So we're going to chain 1 and we are going to turn. Now from now on, we are always going to be working in the back loop only. So if you have a look at the V's that are on top of your work, this one here, or all these here, are the front loops. The ones here are the back loops. So we are going to be working in the back loops only. So that means we will be inserting sort of in between those strands here and picking up the back loop like so. So that's what we will be doing all along the project now. But to get started on this row and to get started on every row, we are doing a turning chain of 1 chain. That chain does not count as a stitch. So we still have to look for the V where that chain is coming out of, because we need to do our stitch into that V. And of course, we are doing the stitch in the back loop only. So we go in between the 2 strands, going towards the back with your hook, picking up the back loop of that V. So this one, not this one. And then we do our single crochet. There we go. So this is, again, put your stitch marker in here if you need to, but this is the first stitch, of course, that we've just done, but that's also going to be the last stitch that we will need to do later on. Now, tipping the work towards you, that makes it easier to see those back loops, and so we insert into the next V, picking up the back loop, making sure, of course, that all your strands stay together. See, you sort of go in and you direct your hook towards the back to pick up that back strand of the V. And this is how you're going to continue all along the line. Just doing my last single crochet of the row. There we go. Okay, so all my single crochets are located in the back loop. And let me just give you an idea of measurement here. So when you measure this, it should be about 32 centimeters or 12.5 inches. So this is the start of our project. Now we are going to start a series of rows, which we are going to repeat throughout the rest. So row 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are going to be the rows that we are going to repeat 10 times from now on. So I'm going to do it once with you, obviously. So I'm going to do row 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 with you now. And then you will have to repeat that. When we finished here, you will have to repeat that another 9 times. Okay, so let's get started. So row 4, chain 1, turn. Now you're going to do a single crochet in the back loop in the first 14 stitches. So starting from the very first one, you're going to pick up the back loop and do your single crochet. So that's the first one, second one, and you're going to do 14. And one more 14. There we go. Okay, so 14 single crochets in the back loop only. Then we are going to do 1 slip stitch in the back loop only in the next 2 stitches. So 1 slip stitch, so that means just pull up a loop and pull it through the loop on your hook. Insert, pull up a loop and pull that same loop through the loop on your hook. So we did 2 of those. Then we're going to chain 1. We're going to turn. You're going to skip 1. So that means you skip the one here, that second slip stitch that you did. But then you go to the next one and then you do 1 slip stitch in the back loop only of the next 3 stitches. So into that slip stitch there, into that back loop there, slip stitch, back loop, slip stitch, and back loop, slip stitch. Okay, then you are going to do single crochets in the back loop to the end of the row, and that means you should be doing 12 of them. 1, 2, and yes, indeed, 12. Okay, so that was row 4. So in fact, you're only doing half a row and coming back. Okay, so you don't go to the end. So that's how we're going to be doing the increasing. Row 5, chain 1, turn. You're going to do 1 single crochet in the back loop in the first 11 stitches. So first one, into the very first one, 1, 2, and 11. Okay, so 11 this time. Now we are going to do a slip stitch in the back loop only in the next 2. So 1, 2, slip stitch, and a slip stitch in that one here, which is a slip stitch in the previous round, so it might be a little bit more difficult to get into, but you saw I turned my hook and that made it easier. Then chain 1, turn. We're going to skip this one, then 1 slip stitch, back loop only in the next 3. So there we go, in there, and 1 slip stitch, and 2 and 3. There we go. Now we are going to do single crochets again in the back loop only for the next 9 stitches, and that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 brings us to the end of the row. So single crochets in the back loop to the end of the row, and that's 4, I believe. 5, 6, yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. There we go. Making sure I've got all my strands there. Okay, so once again we've gone up and down, but not even as far as that first one here, so we are getting there. Row 6, chain 1, turn. This time we are going to do single crochets in the back loop only in the first 8 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, let's get going. That very first one is a difficult one to catch, but we caught it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. There we go. So that's the 8 single crochets. Then we are going to do again 2 slip stitches, back loop only, 1, and once again we're in that slip stitch for the second one. Make sure, oh no, that's a bit too much there. There we go, that's it. There we go. And the second slip stitch. Then chain 1, skip 1, 3 slip stitches. I mean, it's the same thing each time, but you're just doing less and less stitches, but the slip stitches that you do to reduce are the same sequence each time here. And now we are going to have to do the single crochets back to the end of the row. 1, 2, 3, back loop only, of course, 4, 5, and there's 6 of them. There we go. Okay, so this is your increase that you are going to do on the side that hangs down. This here is your neck, so this part will be much narrower than this because this has to fit around your shoulders and your torso. So this was row 6 that we've now done, and now row 7 we are going to do a whole row of single crochets, back loop only, of course, but this row is very important that you count it. 30 is not much to count, so if you each time count your 30 stitches in row 7, then you know that you're still having your 30 stitches. The reason why I'm asking you to count in this row is because here we are going to have to be picking up stitches. Sometimes it might not be so easy to see which one you're going to be picking up, and so just make sure, however you do it, that you've got 30 stitches when you've done row 7 now. So row 7, chain 1, turn, single crochet in the back loop of every V that you see, but of course, like I just said, with the decreases that we did, it might not be so straightforward to where you are going to be putting them, but it doesn't matter all that much. Just make sure you've put them in and that you've got 30 stitches at the end of this row. I've looked at that Brianna Capelet with great detail, and there are some mistakes in there as well. So, you know, whatever you do, wherever you have to put them, that's fine. Okay, I did some in mine as well. So I've now got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 stitches here. Now here is where I always sort of thought, where am I going to put my stitch? And I tended to, if you put it in here in that back loop, it sort of tend to open up a little bit. So what I used to do was just take both loops here. Doesn't matter. I just did that and that's fine. It looks okay. It's not too obvious that you did that. So that's 10 stitches. No, I need to reinsert for this one because there was a strand behind and it's still there. Yes, that should be it now. Okay, and another one here. So yes, and also after you have done this row 7 for a few times, you will see where you always put them. And no, look, there's something left behind there. You will see where you put them. You will find the locations where you find it easiest to get in. So that's just, left almost at your discretion. Just make sure you do them as much as possible in the back loop. I'm not doing these two in the back loop here, but that's okay because it adds to the rustic feeling of the little shawl. So now I am going to just keep going because this is easier now. I am now going to be counting and making sure that I have 30 stitches. If I don't, I'll just maybe undo, add one here, or even add one here. So let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 23, 24, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See, I have missed one somewhere. So I think I'm going to add one right here. There we go. So I'm just going to undo that. Yeah, there. And then do 2 here. It doesn't matter. Like I said, makes it a little bit more rustic. But just make sure you have your 30 stitches here, whichever way you have to deal with that. See, crochet is very forgiving. And certainly when we're making something like this, in those times, they would not have had it as perfect as we make things now. It had to provide warmth, and a stitch less or more wasn't going to make much difference for that warmth. There we go. Okay, so let me just count again. I know, tedious. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Perfect. Okay, so I have my 30 stitches, and now I'm going to do row 8, 9, and 10. So another 3 rows of single crochets in the back loop only. So you chain, you turn, and you do your single crochets in the back loop. Okay, so turn, row 9, another single crochet row to do. Getting to the end of row 9, turn, and starting row 10, once again a row of single crochets in the back loop only. I thought these single crochets in the back loop gave us that lovely ridge that we can see in the pictures, and I thought it sort of looked quite similar. So I'm now nearly back at the wider part of our work, and that is of course exactly where you need to be to start with doing row 4 again. So now you're going to repeat the increases. Let me just put it down here. Now you're going to start repeating these increases here over here. So you will notice that your work will get really wide on one end and remains quite narrow on the other. So let me just show you. This is my one. Ooh, I love making lots of noises. So this is my neck part here. Okay, I'm just going to lay it nice and flat. There we go. It is not fitting in the viewfinder. Okay, but let me just measure it, and that's about, let's say, 59 to 60 centimeters, right? So it's just about 60 centimeters. Okay, so that's my part that goes round your neck. But the part that goes round your shoulders, let me measure that for you. This is quite impossible. Okay, I'm going to try and measure that for you. Okay, I have to extend my tape. Okay, let me extend it a bit more. And I am at nearly 140 centimeters, 139, 140 centimeters. I mean, I didn't even lay it out properly. So that is quite the difference. So 60 centimeters at the top, and then more than double at the base. So don't be worried when you think that, you're making a lot more lines here, a lot more rows here. This needs to be as narrow as possible. This needs to be as wide as possible. This part here, you are going to have to repeat 10 times. So this is the first time. You have to do it another 9 times. You will finish in 2 rows like this, or in fact 4 rows of single crochet, and that's exactly what we did to start with, because that was our start, that was our starting point. So you will finish the same way as you end, and that's perfect, because then it looks, symmetrical when you're wearing it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!